what I'm saying is that because of the clauses that we have in the contract that we will be talking about tonight, it allows us to go back and renegotiate when we need to. This isn't a ploy for us to cheat somebody or to do anything like that. We create win-win situations in everything that we do, win-win solutions. We are transactional engineers, and our job is to find win-win solutions for everyone. But we can't stay in business unless we protect ourselves. We cannot stay in business unless we limit our liabilities. We cannot stay in business unless we negotiate the contract in such a way that we know that we're going to make money once we execute that contract and we enter into that property negotiation, and how we exit that property negotiation is how we make money. The money is made when we buy a property. We realize the profit when we sell it later. But if we do not negotiate this contract effectively and efficiently up front, there won't be money to get later when we sell the property. So everything starts with this foundational piece that we're going over tonight. The reason average investors lose money is because it is often easy to invest in an asset, but difficult to get out of the deal once you get that property purchased. Your holding and your exit strategy is often more important than your entrance strategy. And here's what I mean by that. Most people that take our classes, they get excited and they're passionate and they're all gung-ho and ready to go. And they want to go out and buy a property first thing. But as we talked about last week, the first thing we want to do is build our database. And the reason we built that database first is because if I take on a property, I need to know before I ever make the offer and execute a contract, am I going to buy that property and hold it as a long-term rental? Am I going to lease option it to somebody? Am I going to fix it up and sell it? What am I going to do to make money from that property once I get it bought? So I don't want you to get all eager about the buy. I do want you to be passionate and have fun in the buy. And knowledge is power. Applying our knowledge is power. So once we know that as we make an offer, when we build our property case style file, before we make that offer, we're already going to know, all right, this is my plan A. I'm going to buy this hot property as a rental property. I'm going to let it appreciate over the next 10 years, and then I'm going to sell it. Or I'm going to know, oh, it won't cash flow, but if I buy it and I improve it, then I can sell it for a profit. So that's what our exit strategies might look like. You are a transactional engineer. You are a market analyst. So we can't determine what our exit strategy is going to be unless we've analyzed our market correctly. Executing the contract, that's where we're the transactional engineer. Your job is to recognize a problem somebody has. This business is not about buying and selling houses. This business is about relationship with other people and solving their problem. Once I recognize the problem they have, my job is to see the solution and then create win-win situations within my contract and within executing that deal.
Can you go back to that slide real quick?
Sure.
So I want everybody to write this down, because it's just so imperative that when we're conducting business that our hearts are in the right place, guys. And this slide right here says it all, and I just kind of want to state it a different way for you. We are problem solvers. We are solution providers. We are to be of service to create win-win situations. And when you have the ability to dovetail multiple strategies together, as you will, we become transactional engineers.
That's perfect, Greg. One of the things that we need to look at, just as human beings and being involved in a real estate investment business, is this. If I am not making as much money as I want to be making, or I think that I should be making, the first place to look is, how much service am I providing to others? Am I a giver or am I a taker? Years ago, I was in a workshop and we did an exercise about giving and taking, and it amazed me how much I thought everything was all about me versus about the relationships that I was in and other people. So we want to actually be givers as we move through our business lives. And it's one of the principles of our life. One of the value principles of our life should be, I'm going to give more than I take. All right, the elements in our contract is first, this is what creates a legal binding contract. For there to be a contract, there has to be an offer. The offer states the terms, the price, the timing, when it'll close, those kinds of things. That's all in our offer. But even if we make an offer, it's not a binding contract unless we have an acceptance. So we have to have both an offer and an acceptance. Also, this contract needs to be between competent parties. Now, sometimes you might think that you're not dealing with a competent person, but I'm talking about legally competent. So if I'm working with somebody that's older and I feel like that they have any kind of health problems or something like that, I might want to have family members of theirs be party to what we're doing, that they're there and they hear the offer and the acceptance so that everybody's on the same song sheet. There's a lot of deals out there. I don't have to do every one that's there. I just need to do the right ones that are going to really solve problems for everybody. Next, it needs to be for a legal purpose. If I make an offer, and even if you accept it, and even if we are of sane mind, but I'm telling you, let's grow pot somewhere and it's not legal except in Colorado, then we're going to be in trouble, because that's not going to be a legal binding contract in a court of law. We need written documentation. Now, a contract is legal even if we only verbally make it. I can make an offer to you. You can accept the offer. It's for a legal purpose. We have a legal contract. But where real estate is concerned, the courts have decided that it's fairly complicated. So they want us to have it in writing. If we ever had to go to court, it has to be in writing, or we will not get a judgment from the courts that document, that we're bound together and that we're going to make the money we thought we were going to make. We can write it on a napkin. It does not need to be on the Florida or the California or the whatever real estate broker's contract. The real estate brokers may have made an agreement with each other that they'll all use the same contract, but that is not a law in any state that we have to use that contract. We want it to be in writing. We want it to be clear what we're agreeing to so that there's no misunderstandings. You know, I'm not saying that 100% everybody, but I have a strong belief that everyone's doing the best they know how to do. And most of the time, 99.9% of the time, people aren't out to cheat me. Most of the problems people have is because I think we agreed to one thing and somebody else thinks we agreed to something else. That happens with you and your teenage kids. You're sure you told them to come home at 10 o'clock. They're sure you told them to come home at 10:45 or 12:45. So when we have it in writing, we're all on the same song sheet and we don't have to worry about misunderstandings. There needs to, with real estate contracts, we need a legal description. Now, as I'm saying, that's not 1224 Elm Street. That's the legal description that the county courthouse shows for this property. However, when we make our initial offer, we can write in our contract legal description to be provided within 2 days or within 24 hours of acceptance by all parties, because there's no sense for me to hunt around for the legal description if I'm not even going to get this offer accepted. So I would put in, originally I'd put in the street address and I'd say legal documentation with legal description to be provided within so many hours or days of the time this contract is accepted. By the way, if any of you have questions, we're going to answer all questions at the end of the evening. I get to this part and I'm like, oh, they might have questions already here. Gregory might be answering some of your questions even as I'm talking, but if we don't answer them right as we go along, we'll answer them at the end.
Hey, Mom, I just want to throw something in here right quick before you go into consideration. 75% of the business that we do is not listed with the realtor. Doesn't mean I don't love my realtors, because I do. So when we're using a realtor's contract, if the property's listed with the realtor, we're going to get our realtor involved so that they get half the commission. And you're going to be using the realtor's contract. You have the right to place addendums on a realtor's contract. When you place an addendum on that contract, the addendum supersedes the contract, so it actually allows you to take control of the realtor's contract through addendums.
So we're still
In addition
controlling the
to,
paper. Yeah, so we're still controlling the paperwork even though we're using the realtor's contract, and we're going to get to that in a couple of slides from here, quite a bit more. So consideration means that for a contract to be legal, both the person that makes the offer, that would be the buyer, has to give consideration to the seller in order for the contract to be legal and binding, and the seller needs to give consideration to the buyer in order for the contract to be legal and binding. Now, in almost every state, in fact, I don't know of a state where this doesn't apply, consideration does not have to be money. The fact that I am offering to buy your property and I'm stating that I will pay you such a certain price at a certain time is consideration to you. I'm promising you that in the future I'm going to close on this property. So that is, from a legal standpoint, considered to be consideration. The consideration that the seller gets by the seller's acceptance, I mean that the buyer gets from the seller, is because the seller is giving me consideration. They're saying, yes, if you're going to give me this money for the property, I'm going to give you the property in good standing with a clear title at the time that we close. So that is what really constitutes consideration on both sides from a legal point of view. However, regardless of what the legal point of view, the common practice is there be some kind of earnest deposit in place. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we move through the evening. I'm just getting all the points of what needs to be in the contract here for us to look at first. But we're also going to be talking about this a great deal more next week when Greg talks about multiple offer strategies and how we would handle earnest deposits. We'll touch on it tonight a little bit, but we'll continue that subject next week further. We also have to have the signatures of all the principals involved. So when you're talking to a buyer, if there is, you need to ask the question point blank, is there anybody else involved in this? Does anybody else own this property with you? Do we need to have anybody else present to sign this contract? You need to get real clear. If somebody has been married and they bought this house jointly and one person has left town, I don't care how good the deal is, if that other person has disappeared, we're going to have legal problems later unless we get their signature on both our acceptance that we're giving on when we first make the offer and when we actually close on it 30 or 45 days or when we close on it later. Addendums, Greg has already brought this subject up, but addendums, according to the law, addendum means at the end. And according to the law, if we go to court and if in the front part of the contract it says that we're going to pay $50,000 from the house for the house and that the baby grand piano is not included, and we have an addendum that says I'm going to pay $60,000 for the house and the baby grand piano is included, guess what? The addendum takes precedence. And the reason the courts have decided this is because the latest thing we decided supersedes everything in the contract. An addendum automatically is at the end of the contract. And any addendums that we add to the contract, we want to initial or sign that page as well as the rest of the contract. It needs to have a signature on the addendum page, just to keep us safe.
hey, Mom, real quick while we got everybody on the line, I highly recommend that every page of the contract gets initialed, because we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're not trying to cheat anybody, but we put things in writing, and it's their responsibility to read the terms and conditions of that contract. And if you just get everybody to initial every page of the contract, then everything's up front on the table.
Sounds great. All right, let's talk about negotiable items. And so one of the first things that you're going to put in every state, assignment is legal. You'll have a lot of real estate agents, or you'll have sometimes sellers say, oh, that's not legal. Well, that isn't true. We can agree to what we want to agree to. It may not be the custom. And if you're doing a pre-foreclosure, the foreclosure company selling that property, like if you're not a pre-foreclosure, but if you're doing a short sale, the bank may say, well, we're not going to let you do an assignment. If they won't let us do it, they have to put in writing. So unless the contract says I cannot assign the property to somebody else, that means that I have the right to. However, we don't want there to be misunderstandings. So if in any way, shape, or form I think that I want to do a wholesale deal, that's where I contract to buy the property. I don't close on the property. I don't sell the property. I don't have to be a real estate agent because I'm not selling the property. An assignment means I am selling my right to buy that property. So I am selling my rights in the contract. The person that owns the property is still selling that property to the person I assign the contract to. So if I think that I'm going to do a wholesale deal, when I make the offer, I would put Toniraye Freeman and or assigns makes this offer for blah, 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 blah. I hope everybody it gets that. If you have questions about that, be sure and keep them so that we can answer it at the end.
I want to
Let's
remind everybody very, very quickly, Mom, if you have our software, I know it's on page 2. I think it's section 13. It says in the contract itself, in the language of the contract, that we have the right to assignment. I agree if we put it on the front line, your name and or signs, I mean, we're taking the guesswork out of it. And again, if it says in the contract itself, we have the right to assignment, we legally can do that in every state. And that's why I get somebody to initial every page of the contract.
And if you're with a realtor and their contracts don't say and or assigns, you can always add that at the addendum as well. So there's
Exactly.
several places that we have the opportunity to put it in. Okay, let's talk about personal property. There's two types of property, real property and personal property. Real property is everything that is nailed, screwed, glued, planted on a piece of property. That is real property. If it's attached to the land or if it is attached to the house or the mobile home or whatever it is that you're buying, then that is considered real property. I don't have to ask for the real property. In other words, I don't have to say, I want to buy your house and I want the roof to be included, because the roof is attached to the house, so that's part of the real property. However, personal property are things that are in the property that aren't attached. So an example, a good example might be, let's say there's an apple tree in the yard. I don't have to write into the contract, I want to buy your house and I want you to include the apple tree and all the apples that are on the tree, because that is all attached. But if are apples laying down on the ground and I want to bake an apple pie with those apples, I need to put in the contract, I want to buy your house and I want all the apples that are laying on the ground as well. And this is a big negotiating area, guys and gals, because when we negotiate, we need to be willing to give some things up. So I might say, I want to buy your property, and it includes the lawnmower that's in the garage, the John Deere tractor. It includes the snow blower. It might include the baby grand piano that I mentioned earlier. So it includes that statue of a duck that's out in your yard. things that you don't necessarily care about, but when the person comes back later and they're trying to beat you up on the price and other things, you can say, well, I can't really come up on the price because I wouldn't be able to have this property work for me from a financial point of view. If I pay more for it, the market won't bear that. But I'm willing to give back the baby grand piano. I'm willing to give back that antique car that's sitting in the garage. So I'm giving up something that I wouldn't have had anyway. It belongs to them, not to me, but it gives me a place where I can be reasonable and I can negotiate. Okay, Greg, do you want to talk about escrow and earnest deposits a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could touch on this. It's something that I can spend a lot more time on next week. I mean, we probably could spend 30 minutes on escrow deposits
I
or
know.
earnest money. And, you know, as we do these weekly webinars, there's just so much for you guys to learn. And so happy to see, so many reattendees and some new attendees on the call tonight. So when we write a contract, an offer to purchase, we need to put up money in escrow. And that's an earnest deposit. It's money in earnest, in good faith, that we're going to go through the deal, go through with the deal if it meets all of the contingencies that we put on the contract. Let's say that we put, and I know Mom's going to talk about this later, but let's say that we put an escape clause on the contract that says it's subject to partner's approval with a 14-day inspection period. Well, if my partner approves it and it's done within 14 days, then I need to go through that with that deal. But to let them know I'm serious, I may put up an earnest deposit. Now, what amount should the earnest deposit be? It could be $1. And if you're looking at a $200,000 house and you put up $1 as an earnest deposit, how serious does that say that you are? So a good rule of thumb here is 1% of the contract price. So if it's a $100,000 home, a $1,000 earnest deposit is good. If it's a $200,000 home, a $2,000 earnest deposit is good. Now, I teach you guys that you should be making 20, 40, 30, 50 offers a month. Well, if you're making 50 offers on $100,000 homes, then you've got $50,000 tied up in earnest deposits. I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money to have tied up in earnest deposits. So next week, we're going to give you a magic golden nugget and teach you how to make multiple offers off of one earnest deposit setting in an escrow account. And I'm going to walk you through that in great detail because this will really help you guys when you're out there working your wholesale transactions. I mean, this is a numbers game, guys. That's all there is to it. And the more offers you make, the more chances you have of getting something under contract that you could assign or whatever the extra strategy is. So just know next week, man, I've got a really, really powerful golden nugget, and you guys are just going to love it. You could actually put $1,000 in escrow and make multiple earnest deposits. Now, it's a lot more complicated than just that, but I just wanted to give you guys a taste.
I'm glad you gave him a taste because it was all I could do to not teach this whole section right now. But I'm looking at my watch and I'm going, oh, we're not going to get done tonight till midnight if we don't keep moving. So, but this is a huge contract strategy, escrows. All right. There needs to be an acceptance and a closing date. So I might put, if I know somebody's out of town, I might put that I'll give them 3 days until acceptance. Or but for most of the time, I'm going to put 7 o'clock tonight or 7:15 tonight. I want to know. Now whether you accept my offer or not. Now that does not mean that I can't buy the property after that. It just means that I am not committed and I don't have to buy the property if I don't want to. So I don't want to make offers on properties and have 10 offers out there where people have 5 or 6 or 7 days to decide if they're going to sell me the property, because I am making offers and my purpose isn't to buy. Let's say I put 10 offers out this week or today. My purpose isn't to buy 10 properties unless I get them at a really good price, but I want to see who wants to sell and who wants to negotiate. Well, if everybody's taken their sweet time to tell me whether they're going to accept the offer, I don't know which offer to accept. And a good problem to have is to have 2 or 3 people come back within a 1-day period and say, yeah, we want to sell, because then I can pick the best one and buy that one based on some of the other addendums and clauses that we're going to put in the rest of the contract. But acceptance time is an important contract strategy. And if I am the buyer, I want to be certain that I put, we're going to close approximately on October 31st, because we had a hurricane in Florida not too long ago. And if the hurricane hit the day I was supposed to closing, the day we were supposed to close, then if the seller wanted to, they could back out of that without, I could cause them some hassles, but it would really be a sticky situation. So instead, I want to put, we're going to close approximately on this date. We're aiming for this date, but if we don't close exactly on this date and I'm in good faith, you still have to sell me the property.
So I just want to touch base on this real quick. So, a lot of people I get a little pushback on this when I say, well, I'm going to make this offer and it's only good for 24 hours. And when I say pushback from other students or realtors, guys, we got to create a sense of urgency. We're master investors here. We're moving quick. We're making multiple offers. Now, I know you guys a lot of you aren't in the position that we're in. That's where you're going to be. And you got to start acting the part. You got to start walking the walk. Now, let's say that I say this offer expires at 12 midnight tonight, and somebody calls me tomorrow and goes, well, I just talked to my husband and we want to take the deal, but the offer started at 12 midnight. Well, if I want to do the deal, then I just have them scratch that out, put in a new expiration date, have them initial it. I initial it, we're good to go. So it just creates urgency. The other thing is this really kind of speaks to the message, whoever controls the paper controls the deal. If I get the property under contract and I have 90 days to close, I control that property for 90 days. Now, my escape clause might be subject to partner's approval. So an addendum, in addition to the contract, my escape clause might be subject to partner's approval with a 14-day inspection period. I know Mom's going to talk about escape clause later, but as this is rolling, I want you guys to get the big picture here. So if I have 90 days to close, I control the property for 90 days. My escape clause period, in this case, subject to partner's approval with the 14-day inspection period, I got 14 days to decide, am I going to go the full term 90 days and close on this, or I got 14 days to figure out, okay, am I doing it or am I not doing it?
All right, let's talk for a minute about sole remedy. I do not want one of our students ever, never to sign a contract unless that contract says my escrow deposit or my earnest deposit is the sole remedy should something happen and I don't follow through with purchasing this property. If something should happen, if there's unforeseen circumstances and this deal doesn't close, your sole remedy is the earnest deposit that I've put up. Because you don't want somebody come back and suing you later and saying, well, I could have sold that house to somebody else and instead I took it off the market to sell it to you and now you didn't close on it, so now you owe me the $50,000 in profit I would have gotten from this other person. It's not whether they could win in court if they did that, but they could make us miserable. And we want to build this business safely and quickly. So sole remedy is one of your safety measures.
Great stuff, Mom. Great stuff.
All right. I also want to put into the contract, if I'm going to rehab the property, I want to put that I have the right to show the property prior to closing for the purpose of either selling it or renting it or repairing it with 24 hours notice to the buyer. Now, just because we put addendums in a contract does not mean that the seller is going to accept what we're saying. So I might put this, that I have the right to show this property with 24 hours notice to the seller, even prior to closing. And the seller might say, I live in the house, I'm not willing to do that. Then I always can say, oh, that's okay, we'll take that out. But if I'm going to rehab a property and fix it up so I can quick turn that property for a profit, wouldn't it be good if I already had my contractor in there to get to get the rehab costs ready for me? Wouldn't it be good if I'd already gone in there and measured the floors? I wouldn't order the material till I closed on it. You can be sure of that. I wouldn't be buying materials that I couldn't get my money back on in case the sale fell through somehow. But I want to know the day I close that we can walk in that property and that we can start that rehab versus I buy the property, I close on it, then I spend another 3 weeks getting construction bids of how much it's going to cost to replace the kitchen or to replace the tub or fix the ceiling or whatever that I saw. So you want to hit the ground running and start the rehab the day that you close on this property. In order to do that, we need to get in there and get estimates and bids. Another thing, if my exit strategy is to buy this property and use it as a rental, wouldn't it be nice if I already had it rented before I closed on it so that the renter could move in the day after I closed on the property sale? So we're going over some things tonight like sole remedy that I'm saying that has to be in every contract you do. I'm saying right to show is something we might use sometimes, but we wouldn't necessarily use it every time. If I'm going to buy a duplex and there's renters already in the duplex, this right to show clause just won't fly because you just couldn't be showing a property that's already rented to a tenant. It would just be a disaster. So I'm not saying that everything we talk about is going to go in every property. I hope you all get that. But we're going to use these when if the shoe fits, that's when we're going to wear it. So I might say I have the right to show the property to a suitable end user prior to closing. That would be if I was going to rent it or if I'm going to assign it. What if I want to assign this property, am I not going to have to show it? Let's say I'm going to assign this property to Greg. Greg's going to want to see the property before he knows whether he'll take the assignment off my hands. So if there's any possible way, I want to take Greg in there and show him the property so that he can decide to take the assignment from me. The right to show and the suitable end user. Another thing for suitable end user that we use it this way sometimes. Let's say I'm buying the property and I already have somebody that says they're going to lease the property from me. Well, if I haven't found that suitable end user or the suitable end user changes his mind and doesn't want to buy the property, then I don't have to buy. Now, I can't wait until 2 hours before closing and decide not to buy. In that situation, I would say, I'm buying your property subject to me finding a suitable end user within 14 days or within 7 days. If I've already got somebody that I think wants to rent it or lease it from me, then I can put that in there. If you remember last week, when Greg was teaching about how to talk on the buyer's questionnaire, he said to the buyers, he said, oh, we don't have that property that you want right now, but we get new properties all the time. How soon do you need to move? Do you want to see a property if I come up with one in the next 2 weeks? Well, then I would go find a house that fits exactly what that buyer told me they wanted. I would put this clause in that says, I'm going to buy your property subject to me finding a suitable end user within 7 days or however many days. Then I'm going to call up Sally, Sue, and George and say, hey, I think I found the exact property you want. Let's go look at it. Now, I have the house under contract and off the market. Sally, Sue, and George can't buy the property. Does everybody get that? Who can buy that property? I can buy the property because I have an offer and an acceptance. But then if Sally and George don't want the property, I also can say, oh, it didn't work out to the seller. And some of you might be saying, well, sellers will never want to do that. Well, let me tell you something. If it solves their problem, they'll want to do it. If you've got a seller and their house is in pre-foreclosure and they're 4 or 5 months behind on the payments and they haven't gotten that house sold yet, I can be 100% honest with them and say, look, I find people all the time, but I can't buy your house unless these people want to take it off my hands and live in it as a leased property. I'm going to rent it or lease it to them. So I have to be able to let them in to see the property. But I'm going to do my best for me to buy this property so you don't have to be in foreclosure anymore. They'll be perfectly glad for me to add that suitable end user clause into the contract so that I can show it to Sally and Sue to see if they want to rent the property from me after I buy it, or if they want to take the assignment, if I've got the right to assign, or if they want to lease it, or whatever it is that we're agreeing to do.
Mom, I think an important note here for the people on the webinar is what we teach works. Does it work every single time? No. And you know what? I don't need it to work every single time, guys. And you guys have heard this 100 times, maybe 1,000. I don't need it to work every single time. I just need it to work once a month. I don't care how many offers you have to make to get one a month done. Now, when you're a part of our consulting program, we're going to teach you how to make the right 20 offers to the right 20 people with letters of intent to get one deal a month done. One deal a month every month for 24 months, and 3 years will make you guys millionaires. It just doesn't work every time. It's a numbers game.
That's absolutely right. And here's the other thing that, right in keeping with what Greg just said, I don't want to reach into my tool bag and all I have is a fly swatter if I need a hammer. And I don't want to reach into my tool bag and all I've got is a sledgehammer if all I need is a tack hammer. So I want to have more than one tool depending on the situation. When we started the evening, I said, we are problem solvers. We want to find solutions. Well, these different addendums and these different negotiable items would be used when it fits the situation that we need to do. Owner financing. So Greg, you're really going to go into this when you do offer A and offer B next week, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
All right.
And I'll just let the group know. Most of you've probably seen it until you see it multiple times. It just doesn't sink in until somebody actually takes you through it step by step. It's difficult to grasp. Once you grasp the concept of owner financing or seller financing, guys, a lot of these properties that are out there today in pre-foreclosure, I can get those properties with seller financing, with owner financing, not use any of my money, not use any of my credit, legally wrap the mortgage, get around the due on sale clause, and it's a complicated strategy. So there's simpler strategies, more complicated strategies. And yes, we'll dive into this in great detail next week.
All right, right of first of refusal means that I'm making you an offer, and let's say I'm offering to buy your house for $100,000, and I am the and you come back and I don't want you to come back and just say, I've got seller financing on, I bought the property from you and you're doing seller financing for me. On every single seller finance property that I do, so I am the buyer, let me be clear, I am the buyer, I bought it from Greg, he is the seller, but I'm making my payments to Greg. So I'm doing seller financing on this property that I bought from him. Well, Greg has the right, without my permission, to sell that financing that he has to a third party. So I would put a clause in the contract that says, in my financing contract with Greg, and that clause would say that if you're going to sell this note, this promissory note, Greg, that I owe you for the house to somebody else at a discount, before you can sell that note to them, you need to come and offer me to pay the note off for that same price. This is an advanced strategy, so I'm throwing it in here for our consulting students. We very well might get into this as we're doing deals. I don't think it'll be the first deal you do, but tonight we are really showing you everything there is to contract building. I have the right to inspect the property within 14 days or 21 days. If you think there's something major there, then you want to give yourself more time to get the inspection done so that you can get it inspected. You can find out what the cost would be for that replacement. And if the inspection doesn't pass, or if let's say I know that the roof is not in good shape, well, I have the right to inspection and I'm going to get a roof inspection, and you decide if that roof is going to cost more than $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. I might not want to buy the property then unless the seller comes down more on their price. So I have the right to do an inspection at my sole discretion. I can then either purchase the property or not purchase the property based on the inspection. But when I do the inspection, my contract needs to say, most realtors are going to want to write in as long as there's nothing over $500 or something like that. I really want the amount to be low when I'm the buyer. And when I'm the seller, I want that inspection clause to be high. And my preference when I'm the buyer is to say I have the right to inspection and do not have to purchase the property at my sole discretion should damages be found. Condition of the property. So this clause is about closing. On the day of closing or the day before closing, you usually walk through the property. In my contract with the seller of the property, I'm so sorry. In my contract with the seller of the property, I am going to say, I want the property to be in the same condition or better the day that we close as it is today, the day that I'm buying the property. So I expect I don't want somebody to get mad after I purchase the property today and everything's in good condition and somebody gets mad and puts a hole in the wall, or somebody when they're moving damages the property as they're moving their furniture out. That property needs to be in like condition as it was when I bought it. Unless they want to improve it before we close on it, that would be okay with me. Cash back at closing. You won't necessarily use this very often, but I might make a deal with somebody. Look, Mr. Smith, I'm buying your property and I need to fix it up. I need to spend $5,000 to fix it up. So I'm willing to pay you $100,000 for the property, but actually we're going to write this contract for $105,000 because I need to get some cash back at closing so that I can do the repairs that I need to do on that property. We used to use this clause almost every contract, and we don't use it as often anymore. But it's still something to keep in mind. Anytime I can get cash back at closing, that's okay with me. We already talked about suitable end user. I guess I had that in here twice somehow. I want to know that the roof and the air conditioning, etc., is in good shape. And if it's not, they better come down on the price of the house some more, or else I want them to repair that before we close. It would be a rare occasion for me if there was something that was of major damage that I want that damage fixed before we close, or else, let's say the air conditioning is bad and we've now agreed that the seller is going to get a new air conditioning unit, and maybe we need to close on it next week, but it's going to take 3 weeks before the air conditioning can be replaced just because of work and labor time, etc. So then I would put in this contract, we're going to close, but the title company that closes for us, or the attorney's office, whoever does the closing, is going to hold back $5,000 or $10,000 of your property until such time as the repairs have been completed. So if the seller is going to do repairs for us, we want to have in the contract that that's okay, that they're not complete yet the day of closing, but they don't get their money until the repairs have been completed. This should all make sense to you to all of you as we're talking about it, but it's things that amateurs don't think of until they've already been burned and somebody takes 4 months to get their air conditioning replaced that they should have replaced the next day after closing. Our job, Greg's job, my job, our family's commitment is that you guys build this business safely. And that means we look at every situation. How do we avoid having problems afterwards? It's not about whether we'll overcome the problems. Of course, we'll overcome the problems, but we don't want chaos. It's better to have the problem not even occur before we have to overcome it. I'm buying this property subject to my ability to be able to obtain suitable insurance. I don't think that needs any more explanation than just that.
Mom, that we might want to touch on that just a little bit because if there's going to be if you're buying a property and you're getting bank financing on the property, it's going to be required that you have suitable insurance. And if you're buying a property in the state of Florida that just went through a hurricane, like my house, and it's maybe an older home that's been completely remodeled, and FEMA comes in and determines that the rehab expense is more than half the value of the property, then FEMA is going to require that you bring that property up to code, which in my case would be raise the home 8 feet. And if the home's not raised 8 feet and I sell the home, then the new buyer of that home's not going to be able to get suitable insurance. So there's just so much to look at on every single deal to make sure that we go into these deals safely. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
All right, great. Buyer's ability to get HOA, Homeowners Association, or park approval. See, here's part of why we have all these addendums is because I don't want to check with the Homeowners Association to make sure they're going to let us be part of their neighborhood before I get this property off the market. Our job is to make an offer, get the property off the market and tied up so that we're the ones that can buy it and nobody else. And then we're going to spend our time finding out that the mobile home park will approve us to live there, or that the homeowners association will accept us, because there's no way on God's green earth that I'm going to spend the time it takes to even fill out a homeowners application or a park approval application before I even know that you'll sell me that house. Seller, so this is something, so this one I learned from the School of Hard Knocks. Seller guarantees that he or she hasn't done any unpermitted work on this property. Now, if they've done something inside and they tell me it wasn't permitted, I can still decide to buy the property. But if they've added a drive-through boat cover or something like that and they didn't get that permitted, guess what? I'm very likely to have to tear that baby down once I buy the property and it devalues the property. If they've built on a room and they didn't get that room addition permitted, you might be in a neighborhood where you can't have that many square feet with septic or something like that. So we want to know right up front, is there anything that you've done here that you didn't get permitted? Okay, Greg, anything you want to say about anything we've talked so far, or are we pretty good? Because I think we're already at 7:57. I can't believe I'm.
Yeah, we're definitely right there on the 8 o'clock mark. Mom, I don't know if you maybe want to try and field some questions. I mean, the last one that you put up there is have you done any recent work to the house? Has it been permitted or inspected? There's a definite whole story behind that one. I can promise. We don't have time for it tonight, but we could certainly share it with you one-on-one, or maybe at a different time. So.
And I just thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't need help. And so I was just so proud of myself because I even had a coach. But I was like, okay, well, I know how to do this, and it just didn't even occur to me to ask. It is the smallest thing that will keep you safe and move you down the path to be successful. And the
Hey, Mom,
smallest thing that
we
could
just got a
derail you.
question about the sole remedy clause.
Okay,
So I'll tackle that one. You jump in if you need to. And when I
okay.
write a contract and I'm saying I'm put $1,000 in escrow or $1,000 earnest deposit on that contract, what that says is I'm serious and I'm going to go through with the deal as long as the deal meets all of my contingencies, as long as the deal meets all of my addendums. Now, if for some reason the deal doesn't meet one of my addendums, partner's approval, and I decide to back out of that deal after my 14-day inspection period. So if I back out during my 14-day inspection period, I keep my $1,000. If I wait till the 15th day and decide that I want to back out, I'm going to lose my $1,000. And that needs to be the sole remedy that the seller can come back against me for, is just that $1,000. So you got to look at worst case, best case. If I'm buying the property, I put up $1,000 earnest deposit. I got 14 days to inspect. If I get out of the deal within the 14 days, I get my $1,000 back. Let's say that 60 days down the road, I decide for whatever reason I want out of that deal, and I put up $1,000 earnest deposit, and it's the sole remedy. I know worst case scenario, I'm going to lose $1,000. It's it's high. It's very important that on every deal you do, every one of them stands on their own. And we just take it case by case, guys. With our consulting students, we never allow them to execute a deal in its entirety, guys, without us going over that with a fine-tooth comb. Because, I know this. If I can get you to the first deal and it's profitable, you're going to run to the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one. And it's just important to me that our students are successful and they do the business safely.
There's a question from Steve Gregg that says, do we research whether they recall all permitted work? So we definitely go to the courthouse and look, but if they haven't pulled a permit on something that they should have, we've put this in our contract, Steve, we may not know that they even needed to pull a permit on that. But if anybody comes back later and says, wait a minute, they didn't pull a permit on it, then we can take them to court and cause them to pay for what the damages are because they didn't pull a permit. But I have never had an instance ever where I have said, did you pull a permit for any work that you did that needed to have a permit pulled for it, where anybody didn't tell me the truth then? So,
and there's a real good way to handle this. There's a real good way to handle this in the very beginning of the process. When I'm doing the interview, the information gathering process about the property, I simply ask them, are there any recent upgrades to the house you'd like to tell me about? If they say yes, I say, great. Were they permitted and inspected?
All right, great.
So, Mom, are we ready to tell them about the super special announcement that we've got coming up?
Yes, we're just right there. I put down things that we were going to talk about next week, but we've already been talking about what you're going to talk about next week, so I'm going to skip right through this slide. And if you want to talk to them a little bit about the consulting program, let me tell you all this right now. When you guys get off the webinar tonight and you go to look in your emails, you will have an email that says, if you want a free consulting call with Greg, just click this button and it'll have you answer a couple of questions. Greg will get it and then he will set up an appointment with you. You are also going to have an email in your inbox when you get off this call tonight that is about how to get the seed capital. So I'm going to turn the rest of the evening over to Greg to talk to you. This is the last slide I think I've got, Greg, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys look in your email boxes and that you guys complete these, that you guys follow through with these things because it's free. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, Mom, thank you very much. So at about right when the webinar started, or a little bit before the webinar started, you received an email with directions on how to get up to $100,000 in capital at 0% interest. Now, some of you on the call may think that you don't qualify for that. Personal choice, guys. I would still like you to go through the process, send us your reports, because even if you don't qualify for the 100K at 0%, you might qualify for 25K. Even if you don't qualify for the 25K, there are multiple other resources out there that we can guide you to that could get you some money for your investment business. This is investment capital to grow your businesses. Now, let's say that you didn't qualify for any money. I can sit down and look at your reports, guys. I do have a credit repair program where we can get you back on track to get your credit repaired. So, if you're worried about whether you qualify or not, don't be worried about that. Just go through the steps. When you do this process, there's not going to be an inquiry on your credit, so you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I will share with you that I do have a consulting program, a 120-day program to walk you through your very first deal if you haven't done one. maybe multiple deals in some cases. If you're a student that's already executed multiple deals, then we customize the program to you. We can take you guys on at any level. And these are just some of the things that are included in that consulting program. If this is something you're interested in, I'd really love to have a one-on-one conversation with you to make sure you're a fit for us and we're a fit for you. We don't take everybody. You got to be coachable. If you don't do what we tell you to do, it's very difficult in this business. So as long as you're coachable, we want to have you. Now, the big announcement that I want to make, and let me go ahead and get my calendar out here. I'm going to put some pressure on Mom. We are going to do an event in Tampa. It's going to be a 3-day event. It'll be Friday, December the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. Now, this event is just going to be action-packed, full of tons of content. Guys, I'm going to hit the ground running Friday at 9. I'm going to go to 5 every day. The most exciting part about this event, if you're in our consulting program, if you're one of my consulting students where you're in my one-on-one program, on Sunday, we're going to do a bus tour in Tampa, and we're going to find investment opportunities prior to Sunday that you guys could go out and capitalize on while you're at the event. It's one of the most exciting things we've ever put together, and I'd like to know if you guys are interested in attending that event. If you're a previous student and you want to attend that event, just type yes in the chat bar so I can find out what the interest level is. Again, it'll be a 2-day event. If you're not in the consulting program, if you are in the consulting program, on day 3, we're going to have a bus tour, take you guys out. We're going to go through mobile home parks. We're going to talk to mobile home park owners. We're going to talk to motivated sellers. We're going to find properties in pre-foreclosure. We're going to spend a day out there in the market, guys, showing you how we do this business. So if you're somebody that's interested in that program, just type yes in your chat bar, and we'll definitely get you more information about that. I also want to share one more thing with you before I go tonight, and I've had 20 or 30 consultations in the last 2 weeks with you guys, and you know, the kind words a lot of you share with us, and just, you know, whether you're still struggling and we've got you re-energized, whether you're still in the beginning stages, if you've done multiple deals and you've gotten stuck, this webinar series is really